Welcome to New Money. I'm Bryan. In tonight's episode, we're delving into retirement and financial planning and focusing on crucial aspects of securing your financial future. Joining me this evening is Leseko Monoring, Managing Director of KLU Wealth and Legacy Management, and Jordan Toy, Director, Legacy Family Wealth. Good to have you both on the program. You know, I'm always asked about, am I saving enough for retirement? And we always hear people saying, I've got a retirement fund, I've got a retirement annuity, but there's no real correlation between the words, I've got a retirement fund, to what that means financially. And I'm often asked, how can I know as an individual whether I'm saving or not? So I've divided into a few areas. And for our viewers, I just want to share with them this evening how I see situations. The first thing is, if you have a retirement, any retirement savings, the first thing you've got to do is find out, where are you in the journey today? What are your investable assets? And that doesn't mean your home, which I see as a lifestyle asset, but what is the value of your investable assets? The second thing that's important is you're going to continue contributing further to those investable assets. And you have to work out, with all the future contributions, all the increases in the years, that includes your retirement fund, your savings, your offshore investments, whatever you've got, what is that going to be worth at retirement? And you probably need a financial advisor to help you. The next part of this is crucial. You've got a budget, and your budget is going to change very dramatically between working period with children at home to retirement. Retirement, you should have three things in place. You should have no debt, you should have a home paid for, and most important, you should have an adequate healthcare program. You can deduct from that figure today all the expenses that are likely to fall away. Your debt costs, your saving costs, because you're not going to save in a retirement fund when you're in retirement and then draw. You're going to actually stop saving. Your children should be off your hands. So there are a lot of things that are going to come out of your budget. And now you've got two numbers. First number you've got is, where are you in the journey? The second number you've got is, what do I need? Now, you've got to escalate that income requirement by, say, 6% inflation. So 6% inflation means money doubles every 12 years. So let's assume you're 41, and in 24 years' time, what will 2 million be? 2 million will be 4 million, 2 million will be worth 8 million. So you need to calculate how much money you'll have at retirement, and then what the correlation is between what you're spending and what you're going to need to spend and versus your retirement capital, taking into account. And then you can work out what your shortfall is, and then you can say, over the next number of years, how do I make up the shortfall? What is important is two challenges. You've got to realize inflation, and you've got to realize longevity. So these are three very important components. Leseko, what would you like to add to that?
Yeah, Bryan, it's a tough one, and you're right in saying many people have policies, but they actually do not have a financial plan. So they don't have a sense of how does it fit in. I see some of my clients have rental incomes. So all of those factors actually contribute to say, what is your retirement plan? And what I've also seen, every person has a unique financial plan. So your retirement plan is going to look very different to my financial plan. So it's very important to actually sit with someone who can actually give you a picture, draw a picture for you to say, this is actually, in all likelihood, given all the factors, your inflation, your costs, all of those expenses that will likely happen, how does it fit in and what does the picture look like? And often, the risk of outliving your capital is very real. So I would say you do need to do the exercise, but also as a rule of thumb, when I started out in the industry, there was a rule of thumb that said, for every million that you have in retirement or investable assets, it can give you an income of about 5,000 Rand. So that's also a worrying factor. If you're looking at retiring with assets or the value of 2 million, that means you're looking at 10,000 Rand of income before tax as well. So that already is an indication of how, if you know that you're not going to be able to live on 10,000 Rand with investable assets of 2 million, then that tells you need to look at other avenues and aggressively look at what are the options available to you to maximize your savings, to increase more, to reduce your expenses. So it's definitely something that you also don't want to have much later towards your retirement age. You definitely want to have it as soon as possible so that you start doing these options available to you.
Yeah, I think retirement planning is critical. I don't think enough attention is dealt with it. But Jordan, let me just come in here, because here we're talking about retirement planning, and all statistics by our industry indicate that people are grossly underinsured in the event of death and disability. So it's not, so it's really a financial plan's got to incorporate that. Where are you today? If something happens to you, cost of education, debt, and all those things. Do you think, this program's now been running 20 years, radio I've been doing 30 years, and we've been trying to educate the public. Do you think the public are becoming educated? Do you think younger people are thinking now, even though it's 40 years, 45 years away when you first start work, do you think people are thinking about, firstly, protection and retirement?
I think so. I think it's almost this abstract concept, right? It's something that's going to happen down the line, and then people, I think the younger you are, the less you focus on that, which is sort of the opposite of how it should be. The younger you are, the sort of more ability you have to make a greater impact on that end picture at retirement. But I think exactly as you and Sept have touched on, it's about bridging that gap between what does your situation look like now with all these independent components of your financial plan? What do we think that'll look like at retirement in terms of your assets? And what do we think your expenses will look like in retirement? And just trying to get a better handle on what do we think these numbers look like, and then making a plan from where do we go from here. As you said, if there's a deficit, what do we need to contribute to correct that? But I do think education levels are on the rise in terms of general financial behaviors. You just have to look at TikTok, but that's questionable in my mind. I think there's a lot of poor financial advice that's going around. So I think it's also, you've got to be careful of where are you looking for your information. And as you mentioned, always sitting with a qualified professional, I think, is a good starting point.
I mean, the principles simply are death too soon, not providing for your family. And the three components I always talk about is you can calculate your debt, that's simple enough. You can calculate how much you need for education, private, and some policies even include education riders where you can cover your education both privately and government education. And then the third component is how much is your family going to need going ahead. And remember, it's not the figure today, because today and 3 years' time, you're talking about 20% more because of inflation. So those are three important components. I'd just like to talk, last week on radio, we've all been discussing the two-pot system. I've actually never seen so much correspondence on the two-pot system. There's not a day that I don't get 3 emails from insurance companies or different commentary about the two-pot system. But there were 2 interesting questions asked. The first question asked to me, someone phoned up and said, they've been told that they're going for the two-pot system. They're going to borrow money, or not borrow, they're going to release money from the invested portion, which is that amount of money that was in your fund as of the 31st of August. And just let me add this as well. You can still withdraw that money. It's not preserved. Don't worry about that. But they asked me, they're going to charge a fee of 15%. And I said, I can't accept that. I have investigated. Perhaps you'd like to comment on that.
Yeah, so I think the percentage does, off the bat, sound quite high in that case. I think a lot more understanding's got to come with the two-pot system. It's obviously a relatively recent the implementation date, but if we look at that withdrawal, it's minimum at 2,000 Rand per year from your savings component. And my understanding is that a lot of these providers are charging a fixed or a flat fee for withdrawals and the administration involved in processing that withdrawal. And we're not sure of the withdrawal amount in this case, but I could see it being a scenario where a low withdrawal amount with, say, a 200 or 300 Rand flat fee, let's call it, that can easily equate to quite a high percentage of the total amount you're withdrawing. When you add on top of that taxes, I think people might be surprised that they get out quite a bit less than they might have initially expected.
I think what's important is people are aware of the tax. The second, just your comments, the impact of people taking money. I understand that there's a need, and I always make the point, if there's a need, make sure it's not to go and spend money. It's to maybe pay off big debt and that type of thing, the higher rates of interest. But how do you feel about the two-pot system?
Sure. Bryan, look, I think what I'm seeing also in the media, and I've heard people actually are looking forward to what they call two-part retirement parties. So you can definitely believe there's a lot of miscommunication and the intentions are not as what the two-part is for. And I think it's important to emphasize that it is it's a measure of last resort. So it is not a part, it's not a, personal loans. It's really, really desperate measures because if you look at all the fundamentals with regards to the withdrawal, you really are getting a lot less. You're paying more tax, there's cost implications. In some cases, if you owe SARS money, you might not even get what you're actually withdrawing for. And obviously the implications at retirement. So I think it's good for the people that desperately need it, because I think the behavior before was completely wrong. So people would resign just to access some monies from their retirement. So I think we needed a measure to balance the two extremes, but I think that more information needs to go towards what exactly is a desperate situation. It's not, like I said, a party, it's not a stokvel, it's, there needs to be more education and more drive to say what exactly is an emergency. When do you do this? When are you not going to do this? I think people, they're not even discouraged about tax, and that's actually more concerning for me. So I'm worried about it, but I do understand that there was a need. So with my clients, I really help them understand, is there no other options available? Because then that's...
I'm going to put the next question to you, and I don't mean it disrespectfully at all. How long have you been in the industry?
17 years.
Okay, so do you remember when there was a whole change in the dispensation of pension and provident funds? And ultimately, I don't know if you're aware about, previously, you didn't get a tax deduction on the contribution you made to a provident fund.
Yes.
You got the tax deduction on the contribution made to a retirement pension fund or retirement annuity. Then they tried to bring in preservation, whereby if you left the fund, you couldn't withdraw the money, and that became an absolute nightmare and a whole rigmarole. And they withdrew it. But they still allowed the deduction on a provident fund the same as retirement fund, even though on a provident fund you're going to get cash, and under a retirement annuity you're only going to get one third. Now, the two-pot system has brought in preservation on the 2/3 going forward. Let me repeat, no problem for anyone who's made a contribution to a pension fund, and their value as at the 31st of August 2024. So there's nothing urgent anyone needs to do by drawing out funds. But going forward, younger people, now the 2/3 that's going into the retirement pot is now preserved. Do you see that as a problem?
So my thinking's actually...
Jordan, let's come back there. We're going to take an ad break. I know this is a difficult one. I'm going to give you time to think about it. No, I'm joking. Stay tuned. We'll be back shortly.